feel like I really understand that we have a responsibility to change the narrative around what we are delivering to young people in the classroom. But I would describe the actual day-to-day learning side of things very challenging.
There is a certain kind of man who moves through the world without making much noise about it. He does not announce himself. He does not demand the spotlight. He simply appears, polished and unhurried, in rooms where the most powerful people gather, and somehow by the time anyone thinks to ask who he has already made himself indispensable. Edoardo Mapelli Mazzi is that kind of man. And if you think you already know his story because you've seen him in the background of a few royal photographs, standing tall and immaculate beside Princess Beatrice at some charity gala or polo match, then I promise you, you do not know the half of it. Because behind the monogrammed shirts, the luxury penthouse renovations, and that easy aristocratic smile lies a story woven from Italian noble blood, a broken engagement, a secret child, a pandemic wedding that most of the world missed entirely, and a family embroiled in one of the most damaging royal scandals in living memory. This is not a fairy tale. It is something considerably more interesting than that. This is the truth about the man Princess Beatrice chose, and why that choice says as much about her as it does about him. Let's begin at the beginning because even the beginning is extraordinary. Edoardo Alessandro Mapelli Mazzi. Say it slowly. There is something about that name that belongs to another century, to candlelit dining halls and Renaissance portraits and the kind of ancestry that comes with its own dedicated wing in a museum somewhere. And in a very real sense, that instinct is correct. Edoardo is a British property developer descended from Italian nobility, the founder and chief executive of Bonda Property. But that polite description barely scratches the surface of where this man comes from. The hereditary title of Count in the Kingdom of Italy was awarded to the Mapelli Mazzi family in 1913 by King Victor Emmanuel III, granted to all legitimate male-line descendants bearing the surname of the noble family of Mazzi, which was previously incorporated into the noble family of Mapelli. Italy may have abolished its monarchy in 1946 and stripped those titles of any legal standing, but families like the Mapelli Mazzis do not simply walk away from centuries of identity. Although titles of nobility are not officially recognized in the Italian Republic, they can still be used out of courtesy. The family's ancestral home is the Villa Mapelli Mazzi, located in the Bergamo province of northern Italy, a 15th-century estate that began its life as a monastery and now operates as a luxury venue for weddings and corporate retreats. It is the kind of property that gets written about in architectural journals. It is the kind of background that, in Britain, simply does not announce itself at dinner parties. It hangs in the air quietly, understood by everyone who needs to understand it. Edoardo was born at the Portland Hospital in the West End of London, itself a detail worth noting, since the Portland has long been the preferred maternity hospital of Britain's elite, including several members of the royal family. His father, Count Alessandro Mapelli Mazzi, holds both Italian and British citizenship and competed in the 1972 Winter Olympics in 3 alpine skiing events as a member of the British Olympic team. After retiring from competitive skiing, Alex reinvented himself as an international art dealer and became a Fellow of the Royal Society of Arts. His mother, Nicola Nikki Williams Ellis MBE, is the paternal granddaughter of businessman and Liberal Party politician Sir Robert Abraham Burrows. She has carved out her own formidable reputation in politics, charity, and design across 3 marriages. This, then, is the world Edoardo was born into. Aristocracy and athleticism, art and politics, the kind of interlocking connections across British and European high society that most people spend entire careers trying to build. He arrived with them already in place. What he chose to do with that inheritance is a different story entirely. Edoardo attended the Dragon School in Oxford, then Radley College in Oxfordshire, before obtaining a master's degree in politics at the University of Edinburgh. All the right schools, all the right rooms. But here is what separates him from the merely well-connected. He actually built something with the access he was given. At the age of 23, Edoardo founded Bonda Property, a property development and interior design company focusing on designing homes for affluent clients. The year was 2007, a particularly audacious moment to launch a luxury property firm given that the global financial crisis was about to detonate, but Edoardo either did not know that or did not care. Bonda survived. Bonda thrived. By the time the wider world was paying attention to him because of his relationship with Princess Beatrice, the company had overseen developments worth hundreds of millions of pounds and built a reputation for obsessive, almost theatrical attention to interior detail. In an August 2021 interview, Beatrice revealed that Mapelli Mazzi, like her, is dyslexic. It is a detail he has spoken about openly, and it reframes the story of Banda in an interesting way. The man who built an empire out of spatial design and visual instinct did so while navigating a learning difference that, in other circumstances, might have been treated as an obstacle. Instead it became, it seems, something of a superpower, a heightened sensitivity to the physical world that translated directly into the aesthetic language of luxury interiors. But Eduardo was never content to keep his opinions inside the walls of the buildings he was renovating. Ahead of the 2016 London mayoral election, he wrote an article for Property Week urging the future mayor to insist on redevelopment projects in central London. He has criticized British politicians Andrea Leadsom and Jeremy Corbyn, and used the hashtag #I'mWithHer on Twitter on the night of the 2016 United States presidential election. For a man who was heading toward a life in the royal orbit, where silence on political matters is practically a constitutional requirement, this was either admirable confidence or spectacular naivety. Perhaps both. Property experts and Forbes pushed back on Banda's claim that they were developing homes in undervalued parts of London, arguing that there is nothing undervalued in Notting Hill, where the company's latest project was located, and describing the district as a super prime residential destination. The criticism is fair and probably familiar to anyone who has watched London's property market do what it has done to the city over the past 2 decades. Whether it undermines Eduardo's vision or simply reveals the yawning gap between developer marketing language and economic reality is a question worth sitting with. Either way, Banda keeps building, and Eduardo keeps turning up to design conferences in beautifully cut suits, talking about architecture with the serenity of a man who has learned that a certain kind of confidence is its own form of currency. Now we arrive at the part of the story that the tabloids were sharpest and most unkind about, and which actually reveals more of Eduardo's character than any of the property portfolios or royal engagements ever could. Before Princess Beatrice there was Dara Huang. She is an American architect, Harvard-educated, internationally accomplished, and by any measure an extraordinary person in her own right. Eduardo had a 3-year relationship and was engaged to Dara Huang. In 2016 they welcomed a son, Christopher Wolf Mapelli Mazzi, known to everyone who has ever seen a photograph of him simply as Wolfie, a child of such spectacular charm that he has become something of an unofficial mascot for the more human side of the extended royal family. The engagement ended around 2018. The specifics of why have never been made public, and neither Dara nor Eduardo has chosen to feed the tabloid machine with details. That discretion is deliberate and, frankly, admirable. What we know is that Eduardo began dating Princess Beatrice in 2018. The timeline between the end of the engagement and the beginning of the new relationship was tight enough that the gossip pages had a field day, but since neither party has confirmed or denied the exact chronology, the speculation remains exactly that. What matters more than the timing is what came after. Wolfie did not disappear into the background of Eduardo's new life. He became central to it. Beatrice has a stepson, Christopher Wolf, from her husband's previous relationship with the architect Dara Huang. By all accounts, she has embraced that role not as a diplomatic obligation but as a genuine and loving commitment. The blended family that Beatrice and Eduardo have constructed is not a source of tension in the way that royal-adjacent separations and step-parenting situations so often become in the tabloid imagination. It reads, from every available account, as something genuinely functional and warm, co-parenting done with the kind of grace and mutual respect that most people in far less complicated situations fail to achieve. That tells you something about Eduardo. The way a man handles the end of a significant relationship, particularly one that produced a child, is one of the clearest windows into who he actually is. What we see here is someone who has kept things stable, kept things civil, and kept his son at the center of his life regardless of whatever else was shifting around him. The love story between Eduardo and Beatrice is the kind that looks obvious in retrospect and invisible in the moment. Princess Beatrice actually knew her now husband growing up, as Edo's family is close friends with her parents. His mother and late stepfather both counted the York family as friends, and Beatrice attended Shale's 2011 funeral with her parents. The Duchess of York was even named Albie's godmother. These were not strangers who met at some glamorous party and fell into each other. These were people who had been orbiting the same world for decades, sharing Christmas parties and charity galas and the kind of quiet, continuous social proximity that eventually tips into something else. As Eduardo's stepfather noted, when Beatrice first met Edo she was a teenager, and Edo was maybe 18 or 19, and they formed a bond from quite early on in their lives, which they revisited when they re-met and fell in love. The couple are believed to have begun dating in September 2018 and March 2019. Beatrice attended a fundraising event at the National Portrait Gallery in London accompanied by Eduardo. That appearance announced their relationship to the world, and the world responded with intense curiosity. Who was this tall property developer standing next to a princess? The answer, as is often the case with things that look sudden from the outside, was that he had been there all along. Following his proposal in Italy, the couple's engagement was announced on September 26, 2019. Eduardo was reported to have designed the engagement ring along with British jeweler Sean Lean. The ring featured a baguette-cut diamond in a floral setting. Unusual, considered, personal. It looked like something someone had actually thought about, rather than something chosen from a tray. And then the world fell apart, in the specific way that 2020 had of collapsing one's best-laid plans into rubble. The couple intended to marry at the Chapel Royal of St. James's Palace on May 29, 2020, but postponed the ceremony in light of the COVID-19 pandemic. But the pandemic was not the only storm gathering. In November 2019, just weeks after the engagement was announced, Beatrice's father Prince Andrew sat down with the BBC for an interview about his friendship with convicted sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein. An interview that went so catastrophically badly that he was effectively removed from royal duties almost immediately. The fallout was enormous and swift, and it landed not just on Andrew but on his daughters. What followed was a quiet recalibration. The grand ceremony was gone. The public spectacle was no longer appropriate. And then came the lockdowns and the decision was made for them. A private wedding took place at the Royal Chapel of All Saints in Windsor Great Park on July 17, 2020. No crowds. No public announcement in advance. No commemorative plates. Only immediate family, and the kind of intimacy that a ceremony stripped of all its planned grandeur sometimes accidentally produces. Beatrice wore a vintage ivory silk taffeta gown originally designed by Norman Hartnell in 1962 that Queen Elizabeth II had worn to the premiere of Lawrence of Arabia, along with the Queen's diamond fringe tiara. In a wedding that had lost almost every royal trapping, Beatrice ended up wearing the two most historically loaded pieces in the entire family's wardrobe. There is something in that paradox. The intimate ceremony becoming, almost by accident, the most personal and meaningful one imaginable, that defines this couple rather well. They did not get the fairy tale. They got something stranger and truer. After the quiet wedding, life moved fast. Beatrice and her husband initially lived in a 4-bedroom apartment at St. James's Palace, but reportedly moved to a manor house in the Cotswolds in late 2022. They are not working royals in the traditional sense. No official duties, no taxpayer-funded lifestyle, no automatic schedule of state engagements. Beatrice holds a real job. She served as Vice President of Partnerships and Strategy at the software company Affinity and has since moved into a strategic advisory role there, while also founding ByEQ Limited, an advisory group focused on enhancing emotional intelligence during the rise of artificial intelligence. Eduardo runs Bonda. Between them, they are among the most professionally active members of the extended royal family. Beatrice gave birth to their daughter Sienna Elizabeth Mapelli Mazzi on September 18, 2021 at the Chelsea and Westminster Hospital. At birth, Sienna was 11th in line to the British throne, and following the death of Queen Elizabeth II in September 2022, moved to 10th. In October 2024, they announced they were expecting their second child together. Their second daughter, Athena Elizabeth Rose Mapelli Mazzi, was born on January 22, 2025 at Chelsea and Westminster Hospital, several weeks prematurely. The early arrival shook them. Beatrice subsequently took on a new patronage with Born, a charity dedicated to ending premature birth globally, saying the cause was deeply personal to her in light of Athena's early arrival. Athena was christened at the Chapel Royal at St. James's Palace in December 2025. The household that Eduardo has helped build, Wolfie, Sienna, Athena, and the steady co-parenting arrangement with Dara Huang, does not fit neatly into any of the templates the British royal family usually offers the public. It is blended and modern and, by every available